the water in the ditch lapping round his head, he pulled himself loose, feeling the blood running down his head. He staggered to the side of the road to flag down help. The first car that pulled up was driven by the most amazing blonde. Long legs, perfect hair, and satin skin. "You poor man," she said. "Come with me and I'll take care of you. Special care." "I can't," said the man. "My wife wouldn't be happy." "It's okay," said the woman. "I'm sure she'd want to know you're okay." "No," said the man. "She really wouldn't be happy with me going with you. It's not your fault you crashed. Come on, let me look after you." "No, I can't. It's not right. My wife really won't like it." The lady looked at him, steadying him by the arm, and said, "Come with me." So the man got in her car and went with her. He ended up spending the night, a magical night, with this amazing lady. The next morning, the guy woke up racked with guilt. "I have to go. My wife won't be happy." "Stay," she said. "Where was your wife last night when you needed her?" "Well, last time I saw her, she was still in the car, so maybe still in the ditch?" A first grade teacher brings in a sweet surprise for her class. Chocolates shaped like little boys and girls. Smiling, she asks, "All right, class, who wants the girl-shaped chocolate?" The room stays silent. Not a single hand goes up. Curious, she continues, "Okay then, who wants the boy-shaped chocolate?" Every single hand shoots into the air. The teacher chuckles, "Can someone tell me why you all chose the boy?" A little girl confidently raises her hand and says, "Because the boy has more chocolate, extra bits." A little girl walks up to her mother and asks sweetly, "Mommy, why did you name me Generous?" Her mother smiles warmly, "Because, darling, when you were born, you had the kindest eyes. I just knew you'd be a generous soul." Satisfied, the girl skips away. Then the older daughter comes over. "Mom, why am I called Precious?" she asks. The mother gently places a hand on her cheek and says, "Because you were my little treasure from the moment I held you." The daughter beams and walks off. Just then, their younger brother lumbers into the kitchen. "Mom, I'm hungry. Can I have a snack?" Without turning around, she says, "Sure, help yourself, accident." A man is hiking along a scenic trail when he spots a little girl standing near the edge of a cliff, crying her eyes out. Concerned, he rushes over. "Hey, are you okay? What's wrong?" Through sobs, the girl says, "My mommy, she slipped and fell off the cliff. She hit the bottom, and and the man gasps. "Oh no, that's awful. Is there anyone else with you?" The girl nods tearfully. "Daddy was here too. But when Mommy fell, he jumped after her. I think he was trying to save her, but he splattered too." The man's heart breaks. He puts a comforting arm around her and sits with her in silence, letting the moment settle. Then the girl sniffles and says, "Can I go home with you now?" The man pauses, looks around nervously, and mutters, "Kid, I was just out here trying to clear my head. This wasn't in the brochure." 4 old mates have been taking the same annual golf trip to St. Andrews for years. But 2 days before this year's trip, John drops the bombshell. His wife's put her foot down. He's not going. The rest of the group is gutted. What can you do? They sigh and head off without him. 2 days later, they walk into the bar at the clubhouse. And there's John, sitting at a table with 4 pints lined up like nothing happened. "John, well, what the hell? How long have you been here? And how did you convince your wife to let you come?" John leans back, grinning. "Well, I've been here since last night. It's actually a funny story." He lowers his voice and continues, "Last night I'm sitting at home in my chair, and my wife sneaks up behind me, covers my eyes, and whispers, 'Guess who?' I pull her hands away, and there she is, in this lacy little nightie. She grabs my hand, leads me to the bedroom, candles lit, rose petals everywhere. She's clearly been reading 50 Shades of Grey. Then she says, 'Tie me up, cuff me to the bed, and do whatever you want.' John takes a sip of his drink, smiles at his mates, and says, 'So, here I am.'" Little Billy comes home from school one day and finds the family's pet rooster lying dead in the front yard, feet straight up in the air, stiff as a board. When his dad gets home, Billy runs up to him. "Dad, the rooster's dead. He's on his back with his legs in the air." "Why are his legs like that?" Thinking fast, Dad says, "Well, son, that's so God can reach down and lift him straight up to heaven." Billy nods, impressed. "Wow, that's really beautiful, Dad." A few days later, Billy's dad comes home from work, and Billy races to the door. "Dad! Dad! We nearly lost Mom today." "What? What happened?" "Well," Billy says, "I got home early from school and went to say hi to Mom. She was in your bedroom, flat on her back, legs in the air, shouting, 'Jesus! I'm coming! I'm coming!' But it's okay, Dad. Uncle George was holding her down so she wouldn't float away." A farmer has 500 hens but no rooster, and he wants chicks, naturally. So he heads down the road to a neighboring farm and asks, "Got a rooster for sale?" The other farmer grins. "Sure do. His name's Kenny. Best rooster you'll ever see. He'll service every chicken you got, and then some." "Sounds perfect," says the farmer. "Only thing is, Kenny isn't cheap. 3 grand. The farmer winces, but figures if Kenny delivers, he'll be worth it. So he hands over the cash and takes Kenny home. Before setting him loose, the farmer gives a little pep talk. "Listen, Kenny, you've got a lot of work ahead. I paid a small fortune for you, so pace yourself. No need to rush. Enjoy the process." Kenny nods like he gets it. Then, zoom! He bolts straight to the hen house. Wham! 1 hen, 2 hens, 10 hens. Kenny's on a mission. The farmer watches in awe as Kenny goes on a full rooster rampage. A little while later, the farmer hears a racket in the duck pen. He peeks in. Yep, Kenny's in there too. By mid-afternoon, Kenny's by the lake with the geese. Wham! He's got them all lined up like a barnyard Casanova. At sunset, the farmer sees Kenny out in the fields, chasing pheasants. Then quail. It's a full-blown feathered frenzy. The farmer shakes his head, muttering, "He's not gonna last the night." Sure enough, the next morning, he walks outside and sees Kenny flat on his back in the yard. Legs stiff, tongue out, eyes closed. Buzzards are circling overhead. The farmer kneels beside him, sighs, and says, "Oh, Kenny, I warned you. You didn't have to go this hard." Kenny slowly opens one eye, flicks it toward the buzzards, and whispers, "Shh, they're getting closer." A German, an Italian, and a Chinese man arrive at a logging camp deep in the northern woods, looking for work. The foreman sizes them up. He turns to the German, tall, broad-shouldered, looks like he could wrestle a bear. "You look strong. Grab a chainsaw and join the fellers in the forest." Next up is the Italian. Round in the middle, rosy-cheeked, smells faintly of garlic. "You look like you know your way around a stove. Head to the kitchen and help cook for the crew." Finally, he eyes the Chinese man. Short, slight, not exactly built for chopping trees or lifting pots. He scratches his chin. "Well, we're always needing fuel, tools, rope, gear. Someone's got to keep track of all the odds and ends." He hands the man a clipboard. "You're in charge of supplies." And off they go. A week passes. The boss decides to check in. First stop, the forest. The German's a natural, scaling trees, dropping trunks like a lumberjack legend. Next, the kitchen. Before he even walks in, he's hit with the smell of fresh bread, simmering sauces, and sizzling meats. The Italian's got the place humming like an Italian trattoria. Finally, he goes to look for the Chinese man, but nothing. Not in the forest, not in the kitchen, not in the bunkhouse, nowhere. Did he quit? The boss wonders. Did he get lost? On a hunch, he opens the door to the small, dusty storeroom. It's pitch black. "Hello?" he calls out. No answer. But then, a faint shuffle. Maybe a giggle? He steps inside slowly, waving one hand in the dark, until he finds the pull string for the light. He tugs it. Click. The light floods the room. And out of nowhere, the Chinese man jumps from behind the door and yells, "Supplies!" A small business puts a sign in the window. "Help wanted." Must be able to type, good with computers, and bilingual. We are an equal opportunity employer. A little while later, a dog walks in, looks at the sign, then at the receptionist, and wags his tail expectantly. The receptionist blinks, unsure what to do, but calls the office manager just in case. The manager walks in, sees the dog, and raises an eyebrow. You here for the job? The dog barks once and trots confidently into the office. The manager, playing along, says, "All right, the sign says you have to be able to type." Without missing a beat, the dog hops onto the chair, paws at the keyboard, and types out a perfectly formatted letter. No errors. Then, he hops down and drops the letter on the desk. The manager's jaw drops. Okay, impressive. But you also need to be good with computers. The dog wags his tail, jumps up to the desk again, opens up a spreadsheet program, creates a chart, organizes a database, and even adjusts the formatting like a pro. The manager is completely stunned. Well, that's 2 out of 3. But we also need someone bilingual. The dog calmly walks over to the help wanted sign, points to the words equal opportunity employer with his paw, then looks the manager dead in the eye and says, "Meow." A new preacher was looking to rent a house in the countryside, but the only one available had a bit of a reputation. It was rumored to be haunted. The preacher didn't believe in such things, so he rented the place without hesitation. Sure enough, soon after moving in, the ghost made its appearance. The preacher told his friends about it, but they didn't believe him. They told him, "We'll believe it when we see it, or when you get a picture of it." Determined to prove them wrong, the preacher went home that evening and called out for the ghost. When it appeared, the preacher said, "I need to ask you a favor. My friends don't believe you're real, and they said I could only prove it with a picture. Would you mind?" The ghost agreed. The preacher snapped the photo, then waited anxiously as it was developed. When the picture came back, there was no ghost in it at all. Feeling a little discouraged, the preacher called out for the ghost again the next night. When the ghost appeared, the preacher showed it the photo and asked, "Why aren't you in the picture?" The ghost thought for a moment, then shrugged and said, "Well, I guess the spirit was willing, but the flash was weak." Every morning, a man crosses the border on his donkey, and each day his donkey is loaded with nothing but bags of straw. The tax collectors, eager to catch him smuggling, stop him at the border and carefully inspect his bags. But every time they find nothing. And yet, by evening, when the tax collectors head to the local tea houses or restaurants, they always spot the same man, now looking richer, boasting loudly about his smuggling operation, and claiming no one can catch him. Furious at his cheeky bragging, the tax collectors spend hours inspecting his bags. They sift through the straw, cut it open, tear apart the fabric, even try burning it. They check his hat, his beard, and even cut open his shoes, looking for hidden coins. But despite their exhaustive searches, they find nothing. Each evening, the man is seen in the city, still growing wealthier, offering to buy the tax collector's meals, all while laughing and spinning tales of his clever smuggling operations. The tax collectors continue their fruitless investigations year after year. Finally, after many years, the now wealthy smuggler moves away to another city. Decades later, one of the retired tax collectors runs into him at the market. Curiosity getting the best of him, he approaches the man and says, "After all these years, I'm no longer a tax collector, and we're just 2 old men now. Please, tell me, what on earth were you smuggling all those years?" The smuggler smiles, leans in, and says, "Donkeys." I had a vision of a disaster. Today, I'm going to die in a car crash on the way home from holiday, along with my friend and my girlfriend. On the bright side, we all lived blessed lives and will be heading to heaven. St. Peter is still at the gates, giving us a warm welcome. And of course, there are ducks everywhere. He explains that in heaven, we have limitless paradise and can do anything our hearts desire. But there's just one rule we must obey. You see, God created all creatures with love, but he kind of loves ducks the most. They're his absolute favorite. We can tell. Ducks are everywhere. So, my children, St. Peter continues, above all else, you must not step on or trip over a duck. We thank him for the explanation, and before we even take our first step into heaven, my klutzy girlfriend steps right on a duck. Immediately, St. Peter appears with the most hideous person we've ever seen and shackles her to him. As punishment for harming God's favorite creature, you will spend eternity in paradise. With this man, I'm devastated. I can't imagine an afterlife without the love of my life. But in my stupor, I trip over and squish another duck. St. Peter appears again with another hideous person and repeats the same sentence. As punishment for harming God's favorite creature, I look at my new unsightly partner and realize I've really messed up. My friend, though, he's a cautious guy and has always been quick on his feet. He's watching us from the sidelines and being extra careful to avoid the ducks. For months, he manages to stay clear of them. But one day, St. Peter runs up with the most beautiful woman in the world and shackles the two of them together. My friend is in complete disbelief. What did I do to deserve this? The beautiful woman looks at him and says, I don't know what you did, but I stepped on a duck. A man was driving a rental car along an old mountain road in Eastern Europe at night when his car suddenly started having engine problems. Unable to get a signal on his mobile phone, he spotted a lit building in the distance and managed to get there just as his car stalled. He knocked on the door, and a monk in a brown habit opened it. Good evening, brother, the monk greeted warmly. What can I do for you? I'm so sorry to bother you, but my car's broken down and I can't get a signal on my phone, the man explained. Would you happen to have a landline I could use to call for help? The monastery did indeed have a phone. The man managed to get the car company to send a replacement, but it would take a couple of hours to arrive. When the monk heard this, he invited the man to stay for dinner. Please take a seat and rest, the monk said. We're having fish and chips tonight. The man gratefully accepted the offer and sat down to the best fish and chips he'd ever had. When he finished, he asked if he could thank the cook in person. Of course, the monk replied, heading into the kitchen. Shortly after, another monk walked out. Thank you so much for the fantastic meal, the man said. You must be the chipmunk. You're most welcome, the monk replied with a smile. But no, that would be him. He pointed at a third monk walking over. I'm the fish fryer. A couple decided to take in a beautiful young lady as a lodger. One evening, the young woman asked if she could have a bath, but the woman of the house explained that they didn't have a proper bathtub. However, she offered her a tin bath in front of the fire. Monday nights are the best, the woman added. My husband goes out for darts then. The girl agreed to have a bath the following Monday. When the husband went out for his darts match, the wife filled the bath and watched the girl get undressed. To her surprise, the girl didn't have any pubic hair. She mentioned this to her husband when he returned, but he didn't believe her. Next Monday, don't go to darts, she said. I'll leave a gap in the curtains so you can see for yourself. The following Monday, as the girl began to undress, the wife asked, Do you shave? No, the girl replied. I've just never grown any hair down there. Do you have any? Oh, yes, the woman answered, showing her that indeed she wasn't hairless. Later that evening, when the husband came in, the wife eagerly asked, Did you see it? Yes, he replied, but why the hell did you show her yours? Why not? She shrugged. You've seen it before. I know, he replied, but the darts team hadn't. It was George the mailman's last day on the job. After 35 years of delivering the mail through all kinds of weather to the same neighborhood. As he arrived at the first house on his route, he was greeted by the whole family, who congratulated him and sent him on his way with a tidy gift envelope. At the second house, they presented him with a box of fine cigars. The folks at the third house handed him a selection of terrific fishing lures. At the fourth house, he was met by a strikingly beautiful blonde woman wearing a revealing negligee. She took him by the hand, led him through the door, and up the stairs to the bedroom, where she blew his mind with the most passionate love he'd ever experienced. Afterward, they went downstairs, and she fixed him a giant breakfast. Eggs, potatoes, ham, sausage, blueberry waffles, and fresh squeezed orange juice. When he was truly satisfied, she poured him a cup of steaming coffee. As she was pouring, he noticed a dollar bill sticking out from under the cup's edge. All this was just too wonderful for words, he said. But what's the dollar for? Well, she said with a smile, last night I told my husband that today would be your last day and that we should do something special for you. I asked him what to give you. He said, screw him, give him $1. The breakfast was my idea. On impulse, a young man bought a dozen roses for his girlfriend. When he presented them to her, she was moved to tears, tore off her clothes, and lay on the couch, spreading her limbs. "This," she exclaimed, "is for the flowers." "Oh, come on, silly," he replied. "Isn't there a vase somewhere in the house?" The lion's birthday is coming up, and he wants some entertainment. So he tells the zebra to find the funniest animal in the whole kingdom. To do this, the zebra decides to hold a competition where animals will perform in front of a judge. Whoever makes the judge laugh first wins the chance to entertain the lion. The zebra decides to start by finding the most serious animal. He approaches a tortoise and asks, "Hey, tortoise, I'm holding a competition. All you have to do is sit there and laugh if you find an animal funny. Will you do it?" The tortoise responds with a serious, "Yes." The day of the competition arrives, and all the animals have gathered. Since this is for the lion, the zebra wants to raise the stakes. He announces, "Animals, your goal is to make the tortoise laugh. If you do, you win and get to perform for the lion. If you fail to make the tortoise laugh, then you will be killed and become the lion's meal." The competition begins, and up first is the monkey. He jumps from tree to tree, does flips, and makes funny noises. The zebra is pleased and looks at the tortoise to gauge his reaction. The tortoise is completely unmoved. ... The zebra shakes his head and the monkey's killed. Next up is the ostrich. He runs around in circles, stretching his long neck and doing quirky moves. The zebra turns to the tortoise again, but once more, there is no reaction. The tortoise remains still. The zebra sighs, and the ostrich is killed. The pattern continues with many of the funniest animals trying their best to make the tortoise laugh, but each time, the result is the same. The zebra is growing increasingly concerned that they won't have anyone for the lion's party. Suddenly, the hippopotamus steps up. The zebra knows that the hippo can't do any funny tricks, and just as he's about to have him killed, he hears the faintest chuckle from the tortoise. The chuckle quickly turns into full-blown laughter. The zebra is completely confused and asks the tortoise, "Hey, what's so funny?" He hasn't done anything. He's literally just standing there. The tortoise wipes a tear from his eye and says, "Ha! That monkey was hilarious." Two priests are heading to the showers late one night. They undress and step in only to realize there's no soap. Father John says, "I have soap in my room," and goes to get it, not bothering to dress. He grabs 2 bars of soap, one in each hand, and heads back toward the showers. Halfway down the hall, he spots 3 nuns walking toward him. With no time to hide, he stands against the wall, frozen, trying to blend in like a statue. The nuns stop and comment on how lifelike he looks. The first nun reaches out and pulls on his manhood. Startled, Father John drops 1 bar of soap. "Oh, look," says the first nun, "it's a soap dispenser." Curious, the second nun gives it a try and pulls on his manhood too. Sure enough, he drops the 2nd bar of soap. Now the third nun, intrigued, decides to give it a go. She pulls once, twice, and 3 times, but nothing happens. So she tugs several more times and then yells, "Holy Mary, Mother of God, hand lotion too!" A young blonde was vacationing in Louisiana and had her heart set on owning a pair of genuine alligator shoes. But everywhere she went, the prices were outrageous. After yet another vendor refused to haggle, she stormed out of the shop and said, "Forget this. I'll just go out and catch my own alligator." The shopkeeper smirked and said, "Be my guest. Maybe you'll get lucky and bag a big one." Later that evening, as the shopkeeper was driving home along the bayou, he saw a sight that stopped him in his tracks. There was the blonde, waist-deep in swamp water, holding a shotgun. He watched as a massive 9-foot alligator swam toward her. Calmly, she took aim and bang! Dropped the beast with a single shot. With great effort, she dragged it onto the bank. Lying nearby were at least half a dozen other dead alligators. The shopkeeper stared in disbelief. Just then, the blonde flipped the newest catch over, checked its feet, and groaned, "Darn it, this one's barefoot too." "There's this new guy on my bowling team, Frank. Super nice guy, excellent bowler, But he's got this one weird quirk. At the end of every game, without fail, Frank says, "Next game, I might be 5 minutes late." Always 5 minutes. Every single time. Thing is, he never actually shows up late. He's always on time, but he still says it. It started to really bug the rest of us. So one day, our team captain decides to talk to him. But just as he's about to bring it up, he notices something. "Frank," he says, "are you bowling left-handed today?" Frank nods. "That I am." "I could have sworn you bowled right-handed last week." "That I did." Now the 5 minutes thing is out the window. All we can focus on is Frank's hands. Wait, he bowled righty 2 games ago. No way, he used his left hand all last month. Is he switching hands? Finally, our captain can't take it anymore and asks Frank, "All right, how do you decide which hand to bowl with?" Frank shrugs. "Easy. Every morning I wake up and look at my girlfriend. If she's sleeping on her left side, I bowl left-handed. If she's on her right side, I go righty. Been doing it for months, never bowled better. We're skeptical, but desperate for improvement. So we all try it, and it actually works. Week after week, we start winning, making it all the way to the national finals. Then, the morning of the big game, I wake up and see my girlfriend lying on her back. I panic. What now? No left side, no right side, just straight up snoozing like a board. So I get to the alley and tell the team I'm lost. I don't know which hand to bowl with. The captain turns to Frank. "Hey, what do you do when your girlfriend's lying on her back?" Frank just grins and says, "Well, that's why I always say, next game, I might be 5 minutes late." A woman walks into Bass Pro Shop to buy a fishing rod and reel for her grandson's birthday. She doesn't know much about fishing gear, so she just grabs one off the shelf and heads to the counter. Standing there is a sales associate wearing dark sunglasses. "Excuse me, sir," she says, "can you tell me anything about this rod and reel?" He replies, "Ma'am, I'm completely blind. But if you drop it on the counter, I can tell you everything about it from the sound it makes." Skeptical, she drops it on the counter. The man says, "That's a 6-foot Shakespeare graphite rod with a Zebco 404 reel and 10-pound test line. A solid all-around combo, and it's on sale this week for just $20. The woman is amazed. "Wow, I'll take it." As she opens her purse to grab her card, she accidentally drops it on the floor. "Oh," the man says, "sounds like a MasterCard." She bends down to pick it up and lets out a small fart. Mortified, she stands back up, figuring she's in the clear. After all, he's blind. No way he'd know it was her. The man rings up the purchase and says, "That'll be $34.50, please." She frowns. "Wait a second. You said the rod and reel were $20. How did it get to $34.50? He smiles and replies, "Yep, $20 for the rod and reel, $11 for the duck call, and $3.50 for the bear repellent." A reporter was interviewing an elderly couple for a human interest piece on their 60th wedding anniversary. Naturally, the big question came up: what's the secret to a long and happy marriage? The husband leaned back with a smile. "Perseverance," he said, "and knowing when to stay quiet." He continued, "You see, on our honeymoon, we went to the Grand Canyon and took a mule ride down the trail. Partway down, my wife's mule suddenly bucked her off. She hit the ground, stood up, dusted herself off, and said, 'That's one!' Then she climbed right back on like nothing happened." The reporter raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Well," the man went on, "a few minutes later, the mule bucked her off again. She got up, glared at the mule, and said, 'That's two!' Then she got back on without a word. And then," the reporter asked, leaning in. "Well," the man said, "sure enough, that mule did it a third time. My wife stood up, pulled a pistol out of her purse, said, 'That's three!' and then shot the mule dead." The reporter gasped. "Good grief, what did you do?" I said, "No, honey, I don't think that's any way to treat a mule." He paused, then added myself. She looked at me, calm as ever, and said, "That's one."
Two Irish farmers are walking down a road towards the pub after a long day's work when they hear a motorcycle behind them. They are totally shocked to find that when the bike passes them, the biker is headless. The two men look at each other and shrug. They continue down the road because the call of the pub is getting stronger. As they go, a cyclist comes up behind them, and on passing them, he too is seen to be headless. The two old men shake their heads and continue to walk down the road. After a few minutes, Mick, who's walking along the inside, turns to his companion and says, "You know what, Seamus? I be thinking that maybe you should be carrying that there scythe on your other shoulder." A man rides his motorcycle down the highway, when suddenly he hears a booming voice which proclaims, "I am God. Since you have been such a devout believer in me, I will grant you one wish." The man thinks for a minute and responds, "Well, God, I love to ride my motorcycle, so I wish for a bridge that goes from the coast of California to Hawaii so I can ride over it." God answers, "I will grant this wish, if it's what you truly want. But consider for another moment a less material wish that could benefit all of mankind." The man thinks it over for another minute and says, "Aha, I've got it. I wish for men to be able to understand women, to know what they want and how they feel, and to understand what really goes on in a woman's mind." God was silent for a few moments, then responded, "Did you want 2 lanes or 4 on that bridge?" So I was sitting on the bus just reading a book when somebody tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around and saw an old lady. She said to me, "Sonny, would you like some nuts? I've got a couple hazelnuts and almonds if you'd like." "Sure," I replied. Then she gave me a handful of nuts and went back to sit with her friends. What a nice lady, I thought while happily munching on the nuts. A few minutes later, I felt another tap on my shoulder, and there she was again, offering some nuts. I gladly accepted, and she went back to her seat. After about 10 minutes, she tapped me on the shoulder, once again offering some nuts. I asked her, "Why don't you eat them yourself?" "Because we've got no teeth," she replied. "Then why do you buy them?" I asked. "Oh, because we just love the chocolate around them." A cop pulls over an old lady for speeding on a highway. He asks for her driver's license and registration. When she opens her wallet, he notices a concealed carry permit. He asks, "Ma'am, do you have a weapon in your possession at this time?" She responds, "I'll bet you $100 you can't guess the answer to that question," as she slaps a crisp bill on her dashboard. The cop rubs his chin and thinks for a moment and then says, "Okay, lady, I'll take that bet." He guesses that she has a .38 special in her purse, and a .45 in her glove box, and a 9mm Glock in the center console, and a shotgun in the trunk. "However did you guess that, young man?" the old lady says, grasping her pearls. "You see, ma'am," the cop said, snatching up the $100 bill. "This is Reddit. After I read about you on the 3rd repost, I knew I'd find you soon enough." A nun and a priest are playing golf. The priest is teeing off at the first hole. The ball flies across the fairway towards the green, but lands meters from the hole. "Oh, God damn it, I missed!" The nun scolds the priest. "Father, you ought to be careful. You of all people should know that if you continue to blaspheme like that, surely the Lord will strike you down with lightning." At the green, again the priest takes his shot, but the ball rolls past the hole, coming to a stop just a few inches away from it. "Oh, God damn it, I missed again." Again, the nun warns him. "Father, watch your language. Take the Lord's name in vain again, and surely he will strike you down with lightning." The priest takes his putter and puts the ball towards the hole in what should be an incredibly easy shot. Unfortunately, the ball skims the side of the hole and overshoots, coming to rest just next to it. "Oh, God damn it, how could I miss that?" exclaims the priest. Suddenly, there's a huge thunderclap and bright flash of lightning, and the priest finds himself standing all alone on the golf course. And then a voice booms from above. "Oh, God damn it, I missed." Kevin had just gotten a new car and was out for a drive when he accidentally cut off a truck driver. Truck driver motioned for Kevin to pull over. When Kevin did, the driver got out of his truck and pulled a piece of chalk from his pocket. He drew a circle on the side of the road and gruffly commanded to Kevin, "Stand in that circle and don't move." He then went to Kevin's car and cut up its leather seats. When he turned around, Kevin had a slight grin on his face. So the driver said, "Oh, you think that's funny? Watch this." He gets a bat out of his truck and breaks every window in Kevin's car. When he turns and looks at Kevin, he has a smile on his face. Driver is getting really mad. He gets his knife back out and slices all its tires. Now Kevin is laughing. The truck driver is really starting to lose it. He goes back to his truck and gets a can of petrol, pours it on Kevin's car, and sets it on fire. He turns around and Kevin is laughing so hard he is about to fall down. "What's so funny?" the truck driver asked. Kevin replied, "Every time you weren't looking, I stepped outside the circle." Son, Daddy, I fell in love and want to date this awesome girl. Father, that's great, son. Who is she? Son, it's Sandra, the neighbor's daughter. Father, oh, I wish you hadn't said that. I have to tell you something, son, but you must promise not to tell your mother. Sandra is actually your sister. The boy is naturally bummed out, but a couple of months later, son, Daddy, I fell in love again, and she is even hotter. Father, that's great, son. Who is she? Son, it's Angela, the other neighbor's daughter. Father, oh, I wish you hadn't said that. Angela's also your sister. This went on a few more times, and finally the son was so mad, he went straight to his mother crying. Son, Mom, I am so mad at Dad. I fell in love with 6 girls, and I can't date any of them because Dad is their father. The mother hugs him affectionately and says, "You can date whoever you want. He isn't your father." The flight wasn't carrying enough meals for all passengers. Airborne less than 30 minutes on an outbound evening flight, the A-Stew lead flight attendant for the cabin crew nervously made the following painful announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so very sorry, but it appears that there has been a terrible last-minute error by our airport catering service. I don't know how this has happened, but we have 103 passengers on board and, unfortunately, only 40 dinner meals. I truly apologize for this mistake and inconvenience." When the passenger muttering has died down, she continued, "Anyone who is kind enough to give up their meal so that someone else can eat will receive free unlimited drinks for the duration of our flight." Her next announcement came 90 minutes later. "If anyone would like to change their minds, we still have 40 dinners available." A guy is playing golf with his wife. They're on the 12th hole, and the guy slices his tee shot right into the woods. He trudges into the woods and locates his ball. It's in a little clearing, but there is a big barn between him and the green. He takes a good look and says, "Listen, honey, I think if you hold the barn door open, I can hit the ball right through the barn and onto the green." So his wife goes over and holds the door open. The guy takes a 4-iron and whack, hits the ball. The ball hits his wife right between the eyes, killing her instantly. Well, it's a year later, and the guy is on the same golf course with his new wife. They're on the 12th hole, and once again, he hits a slice into the woods. Shaking his head with disgust, he heads into the woods. Sure enough, his ball is in about the same spot. Sadly, he takes out a 7-iron and lines up to hit the ball sideways back onto the fairway. Before he can take the shot, his new wife says, "Honey, you know, I think I might be able to hold the barn door open for you. That way you can hit the ball through the barn and onto the green." The guy just shakes his head. "No way, dear," he says. "I tried that last year and ended up with a 9 on the hole." A guy is playing golf with his wife. They're on the 12th hole, and the guy slices his tee shot right into the woods. He trudges into the woods and locates his ball. It's in a little clearing, but there is a big barn between him and the green. He takes a good look and says, "Listen, honey, I think if you hold the barn door open, I can hit the ball right through the barn and onto the green." So his wife goes over and holds the door open. The guy takes a 4-iron and whack, hits the ball. The ball hits his wife right between the eyes, killing her instantly. Well, it's a year later, and the guy is on the same golf course with his new wife. They're on the 12th hole, and once again, he hits a slice into the woods. Shaking his head with disgust, he heads into the woods. Sure enough, his ball is in about the same spot. Sadly, he takes out a 7-iron and lines up to hit the ball sideways back onto the fairway. Before he can take the shot, his new wife says, "Honey, you know, I think I might be able to hold the barn door open for you. That way you can hit the ball through the barn and onto the green." The guy just shakes his head. "No way, dear," he says. "I tried that last year and ended up with a 9 on the hole." 2 elderly ladies, Connie and Jean, sat on a park bench outside the town hall, where a flower show was underway. Jean, the shorter of the two, sighed and leaned toward Connie. Life has gotten so dull. We never do anything exciting. For $10, I'd strip down and streak through that boring old flower show. Connie's eyes twinkled as she pulled a crisp $10 bill from her purse. You're on. With a determined nod, Jean slowly wriggled out of her clothes. She plucked a dried flower from a nearby display, clenched it between her teeth, and, completely naked, dashed through the front doors as fast as her aging legs could carry her. Connie waited outside, listening to the sudden uproar of gasps, laughter, and enthusiastic applause from within. Moments later, Jean burst through the exit, grinning from ear to ear. "What happened in there?" Connie asked, wide-eyed. Jean held up a check and laughed. "Turns out I won first prize, best dried arrangement, and $1,000 to boot." Two couples decided to host a friendly dinner party one evening. During the evening, Jim accidentally dropped his napkin under the table. When he bent down to pick it up, he couldn't help but notice that Bob's wife, Sue, wasn't wearing any underwear under her dress. The shocking discovery left Jim flustered, and in his haste to sit back up, he bumped his head on the table, emerging red-faced and awkward. Later, while Jim was helping himself to drinks in the kitchen, Sue walked in and with a sly smile asked, "Did you like what you saw under the table?" Caught off guard, Jim hesitated but finally admitted, "Well, yes, I did." Sue leaned closer and whispered, "If you want it, it'll cost you $500. Jim was stunned but intrigued. After a brief internal debate, he agreed to her proposition. Sue suggested he come by her house Friday afternoon since Bob would be at work. When Friday rolled around, Jim arrived at Sue's house at 2 p.m. sharp. After handing her the agreed $500, they went to the bedroom and the deal was done. Jim quickly dressed, thanked Sue, and left. That evening, when Bob came home, he casually asked Sue, "Did Jim stop by the house today?" Sue's heart skipped a beat, but she replied, "Why, yes, he did drop by for a little while." Bob nodded and asked, "Did he give you $500? Sue, trying to stay composed, answered, "Well, yes, he did." Bob grinned and said, "Perfect. He stopped by the office this morning and borrowed $500 from me. He promised he'd drop it off at the house today. Glad he kept his word. Now that is what you call playing the long game." Two men are driving through Texas when they get pulled over by a state trooper. The trooper walks up and taps on the window with his nightstick. The driver rolls down the window and whack! The trooper smacks him in the head with the stick. The driver says, "What the heck was that for?" The trooper says, "You're in Texas, son. When we pull you over, you better have your license ready when we get to your car." The driver says, "I'm sorry, officer, I'm not from around here." The trooper runs a check on the guy's license, and he's clean. He gives the guy his license back and walks around to the passenger side and taps on the window. The passenger rolls his window down, and whack! The trooper smacks him with the nightstick, too. The passenger says, "What did you do that for?" The trooper says, "Just making your wish come true." The passenger says, "Huh?" The trooper says, "I know that 2 miles down the road you're going to say, 'I wish that bastard would have tried that bull with me.'" Once, Bob was so upset by his past deeds that he decided to visit a church and confess all of his sins. When he arrived at the church, he walked to the confession area and spoke to the pastor. "Father, I am sinful." "Yes, son, just tell me what you have done. The Lord will forgive you." "Father, I have a steady relationship with my girlfriend. It's been 2 years and nothing serious has ever happened between us. Yesterday I visited her house. Nobody was at home except for her sister. We were alone and I slept with her." "That's bad, my boy. Fortunately, you have realized your mistake." "Father, last week I went to her office to look for her and could not find anyone except for one of her friends, and as we were alone, I slept with her too." "That's not very good of you." "Father, before that, last month, I went to her uncle's house to look for her. Nobody was around except for her auntie. As we were alone, I slept with her also." "Father? Father!" Suddenly, Bob realized that there was no response from the father. He walked over and discovered that the pastor was not there. So he began searching for him. "Father, where are you?" He searched all the corners, high and low, and finally, he found him hiding under the table behind the piano. "Father, why are you hiding here?" "Sorry, son. Suddenly I remembered there is nobody around here except me." John finally found the nerve to tell his fiancée that he had to break off their engagement so he could marry another woman. "Can she cook like I can?" the distraught woman asked between sobs. "Not on her best day," he replied. "Can she buy you expensive gifts like I do?" she asked. "No, she's broke," he said. "Well then, is she better in bed than me?" she inquired. "Nobody does it like you, babe," he replied. "Then what can she do that I can't?" the woman tearfully asked. "Sue me for child support." A Swede, an Irishman, a Scotsman, and their wives went to play golf one day. They were about to tee off on the first hole. The Swede's wife steps up to the tee, and as she bends over to place her ball, a gust of wind blows her skirt up and reveals her lack of underwear. "Good grief, woman, why aren't you wearing any skivvies?" Ole demanded. "Well, you don't give me enough housekeeping money to afford any." The Swede immediately reaches into his pocket and says, "For the sake of decency, here's a 50, go and buy yourself some underwear." Next, the Irishman's wife bends over to set her ball on the tee. Her skirt also blows up to show that she, too, is wearing no undies. "You woman of mine, you've no knickers on." "Why not?" asks Patrick. She replies, "I can't afford any on the money you give me." Patrick reaches into his pocket and says, "For the sake of decency, here's a 20. Go and buy yourself some underwear." Lastly, the Scotsman's wife bends over. The wind also takes her skirt over her head to reveal that she, too, is naked under it. "For Jake's sake, Aggie, where the friggin' hell are your drawers?" Duncan inquired. She also explains, "You didn't give me enough money to be able to afford any." The Scotsman reaches into his pocket and says, "Well, for the love of decency, here's a comb. Tidy yourself up a bit." Dylan was practicing his golf swing in his front yard when he swung a little too hard and sent the ball through his neighbor's window. He rang the bell, but nobody answered, so he opened the door to see an old lamp lying near broken glass, and a huge, fat Arabian man wearing a turban sitting on the couch. Dylan asked, "Who are you?" The fat man replied, "I am a genie you have freed from that lamp." Dylan questioned, "Oh man, do I get 3 wishes?" The genie replied, "Since you freed me by accident, you only get 2 and I get 1. Dylan thought about it and realized what he wanted. "I want to be the best golfer ever." The surprised genie said, "You sure? Most people wish for money, but okay, now your wife gets 1 wish." Dylan brought over his wife, who wished right away, "I want $1 million every week of my life." The genie said, "Granted. And now for my wish. I have been cramped up in that lamp for many years, so it's been a while since I've been with a woman. I want 1 day of wild, crazy sex with your wife, Dylan." Dylan said, "No way!" The genie replied, "Not even for $1 million a week?" Dylan turned to his wife, who said, "I guess for all that I should. Well, not until Dylan leaves." Dylan said, "Okay, have fun, I guess," and left. Dylan's wife then proceeded to have wild sex for the rest of the day with the genie. When they were finished, the genie asked how old her husband was. She said, 45. The genie laughed and said, "Isn't he a little old to be believing in genies?" Dylan was practicing his golf swing in his front yard when he swung a little too hard and sent the ball through his neighbor's window. He rang the bell, but nobody answered, so he opened the door to see an old lamp lying near broken glass, and a huge, fat Arabian man wearing a turban sitting on the couch. Dylan asked, "Who are you?" The fat man replied,